Joe is back, and I'm here with a classic movie review. Today, I'm going to be talking about the Abel Ferrara directed movie Ms. 45. It was released in 1981. This is the second feature-length movie that he directed, and this follows basically his first movie, Driller Killer. Driller Killer, I will review at some point on this channel. Abel Ferrara directed that movie, kind of starred in that movie, and then went on to direct Ms. 45. Zoe Tamalis, she's in the main role. She plays Thana, and she is Ms. 45. She's on the posters, and this is Zoe Tamalis's finest hour. This is her moment. I mean, unfortunately, if you know anything about her career, she had major issues with drugs, heroin, which definitely stunted her growth as an actress, and unfortunately she never really went on to bigger and better things. But nevertheless, this is a classic movie from 1981. Yeah, I had to review this. Now, basically, I watched this movie for the first time, I think it was about maybe 2 years ago, and I'd been a fan of Abel Ferrara's, but never seen too much of his content. I was kind of going through his filmography, and this movie popped up. I was aware of Zoe Tamalis, who appeared in another Abel Ferrara movie, Bad Lieutenant, in 1992 with Harvey Keitel. Zoe Tamalis plays the heroin junkie dealer that basically gives Harvey Keitel's character, the Bad Lieutenant, the heroin, and they basically, there's a scene, a very haunting scene between the two. Ms. 45, 1981, Abel Ferrara's second movie. He actually appears in this movie, kind of a small cameo, and I'll get to that in a moment. But basically, this movie, to sum it up, I would say, this is a highly well-made, low-budget movie, if that makes sense. A highly well-made, low-budget movie, whereas clearly the production is constrained by certain points, but overall the direction, the performances, the violence, it's all, I would say it kind of feels a bit like more of a polished Driller Killer. With Abel Ferrara's Driller Killer, that was a lot more raw. I think with Ms. 45, it was kind of like the next step up. The production was a little bit better, the soundtrack was a little bit better, the acting was a little bit better. There was all these kind of things that were going for it, so I highly enjoyed the film. But we'll get into it here. So if you're not too familiar with Ms. 45, it stars Zoe Tamalis as Thana. She works at a fashion house, and she basically is a mute, so she doesn't speak. We never actually get any kind of backstory into Thana's disability, if she was born with it or if it was due to an incident. The movie being only 1 hour and 20 minutes, it definitely is also quite a condensed movie. We don't really get much of any backstory, really, of Thana, played by Zoe Tamalis. But nevertheless, she's working at this fashion house, and one day she leaves work and she gets attacked by a mugger, which is played by Abel Ferrara. Zoe's character is then basically taken down this alley. She's raped, and very kind of, I do hate rape scenes and stuff like that, but it wasn't too grotesque. It kind of just was kind of started and then it was over pretty quickly. I just want to go into the detail a little bit here about that scene, not so much about the rape itself, but the appearance of the mugger that rapes Thana. Now, basically, I saw Driller Killer years ago, and then after seeing this movie about 2 years ago, and seeing that scene specifically, and seeing Abel Ferrara and his character, the mugger, the way he was looking, obviously with the mask on, and the frizzy hair, and the way he was, the jeans and jacket. To me, I instantaneously thought this is kind of like a pseudo sequel to Driller Killer. Kind of rewatching the movie again, and seeing it that way, and seeing it as like a inadvertent sequel. It really kind of works for me, this movie, because I don't want to get too kind of too explicit here, but we see Zoe, Tamalis's character, Thana. We see Thana in this movie start off an innocent person and slowly degrades into this kind of psychopathic killer, okay? Prior to the rape, she was fine. Obviously, she had this disability where she couldn't talk, but, she seems a well-rounded person. Obviously, can hold a job, is working, is sociable, even though she has this constraint not being able to talk. And Thana then is sexually assaulted, and then that is the kind of the beginning of this kind of turn towards evil, basically. Not to get too explicit here, but the act of rape itself, we see the mugger basically ejaculating into Thana. In a way, it's almost kind of like the seed of evil is being planted inside of Thana. From what I've seen online, this is not a direct sequel to Driller Killer, but with that scene added, and the way the mugger looks, and just the way in which Driller Killer ended, with the Driller Killer, Abel Ferrara, not being caught by the police and getting away, who knows where he is. Obviously, both movies take place in the same location, and with that mindset that I have, that I take this into account, that this is basically a Driller Killer sequel, Driller Killer 2, Ms. 45. The rape scene in which the Driller Killer is still on the loose, plants his seed of evil into Thana. Yeah, man, with that context, I was like, whoa, man, that is just crazy, and that's what happened, and then slowly begins the downfall of Thana. So the rape scene happens, and then she goes back to her apartment, and if her day couldn't get any worse, she stumbles upon a thief, basically a burglar, in her apartment that's taking her possessions. And there's a bit of dialogue between this mugger, this thief, in her apartment. He finds out that she basically can't talk, that she's a mute, and proceeds to then rape her, which would basically, in a space of 2 hours or less, she's been raped by two strangers, one in the street that grabbed her, and the other in her apartment. So, kind of crazy ordeal, would just kind of mess up anyone. Thana's character never actually goes to the police, and that's never really hinted on too much as to necessarily why. I mean, I don't know, I guess she was too scared. This is what I'm trying to say. As a viewer, there was never really any specific reason why, she can't go to the police to report this crime. The character is a mute. She can't kind of express herself in terms of dialogue and stuff like that. So we are, as a viewer, kind of just left to presume reasons in which why she never actually went to the police. And I wish that was kind of fleshed out. But nevertheless, she's getting raped, and then she ends up killing the thief, this burglar, in her apartment, and kills him with an iron straight to the skull. She takes the burglar's gun, which is a 45, takes that, and we'll see later on in the film that she starts to use that to start killing. She doesn't go to the police. Instead, she dismembers the body. She's an innocent girl that's suddenly sucked into this degenerate state where she's cutting up body parts in her bathtub. And it's just like, wow, and I get it, obviously that trauma would serious psychological effect on someone, and not trying to make him an excuses or anything, murder is wrong, of course. Two wrongs don't make a right. She's so beautiful, Zoe Tamerlis. At this point, she's a very young woman at this point in 1980, and then you see this angelic, beautiful young woman that's kind of soaring away an arm. It's just like, wow, man. But all nicely done, and then to kind of make matters kind of even more kind of grotesque, she gets the idea to put the body parts in a bag and put them in the fridge. We see her fridge will fill up. She's struggling to shut the door. And then we see her going around New York, on the streets of New York, and dumping various body parts like a hand, which later on we would see a New York homeless person stumble upon a trash can looking for food and sees the hand, like, damn, oh my god, it's that was a cool scene. It's one thing to kill someone in self-defense, but to then, like, as I said, this seed of evil that the driller killer is giving her, that she's now like, I'm going to dismember the body and I'm going to cut it up into little pieces, and eventually she feeds some of the body parts to her landlord's dog, Phil. And oh man, it's just like, ugh, I want to bring up, there is a scene in which Thana, very kind of soon after the dismembering, has a vision in the bathroom of the, as I like to call him, the driller killer, the thug that raped her in the alleyway. Very good, I didn't see it coming, kind of this kind of reflection in the bathroom mirror. You've got the driller killer kind of with this kind of clown mask on, and it just kind of, out of nowhere, just comes, whoa, that was done very nicely. So then, the story continues, and we see, as I said, the slow downfall of the character, where initially she killed in self-defense. Well, initially she was a victim, then she was a victim, but killed in self-defense. Then she's dismembering the body, is slowly getting this kind of evil consuming her, and then we see two separate situations where Thana is accosted by two men in two separate situations. Both situations result in Thana pulling out the gun and shooting both men. She's this kind of vigilante. She's got the 45 that the thief had. Now she's using it to, take out the bad guys, so to speak. Once we see the character of Thana becoming a vigilante and start, taking out kind of like bad guys and rapists or whatever, it definitely gave me Death Wish vibe, Death Wish 1 specifically. And there's a scene where she's surrounded by a bunch of thugs that plan to, I guess, mug her and then rape her. She pulls out the gun, and it's a great sequence, I must say, of, just bow, 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 just shooting everyone. I don't condone, violence in any way, but it was a pretty cool visual to see that, and great cinematography. That scene was shot really well. Then we get this really, really interesting scene where Thana meets this guy at a bar, and this guy is recounting this story of how his wife basically cheated on him. As I said, the scene just starts, there's no real kind of lead up to it. We just see Thana sitting at the bar, and this guy is just like, to the point where I'm not too sure if even the guy knew Thana was a mute. He was just sitting there and just, listening to this story. Then we see the two at a bench, still being told by the guy about how he found his wife in the arms of someone else, and that he went home and killed his wife's cat. This results in Thana pulling out a gun and trying to actually kill the guy as he's speaking. And he's so kind of like in the moment, like saying this, like recounting this story of him like killing the cat, that he doesn't even realise that Thana had pulled the gun out She tries to shoot him point blank, and I think the gun jams. Anyways, he takes the gun. He's like, "You think this is a joke?" Like, he's like, "What the hell? Like, put out a gun on me." But the guy, he takes the gun and he kind of points it at Thana to think he's going to kill her, and then shoots himself in the head out of nowhere. Like, the guy just commits suicide with Thana's gun, the 45. Even though overall that was, like, I remember the film fondly, that was the scene on the park bench in which the guy committed suicide in front of Thana that really, like, whoa, that kind of stood out to me a lot. Like, if this girl wasn't already messed up enough psychologically, would just compound that with a suicide literally right in front of her. So yeah, and Thana basically takes the gun away after the guy's like basically dead, and she just goes off and first I get pointed at Thana, and then to turn it on himself. Just, wow, man, that is some crazy stuff. So just going to key moments, there's a scene where towards the end of the movie she is getting ready to go to a work party with her work colleagues, and she's in this nun outfit and she's kissing the bullets. Very well shot, very stylistic. It just works very well, the visual of the lipstick that Thana's wearing, the nun outfit, kissing the bullets. Beautiful but deadly, like what's to come, obviously she's got bad intentions. And then we see a sequence where she's looking at the mirror and pointing the gun. Yeah, just awesome stuff. So yeah, she goes to this Halloween party with her boss and her work friends. Her boss, I think his name is Albert, basically tries to get with her in the upstairs office, in which point he gets killed by Thana. Then all chaos breaks loose. So the final act is Thana shooting dead innocent random people at the party, and it's all done in slow motion, so it's kind of like, no, don't, like that. Very kind of quick cuts and fast like that, but I like the fact that it was kind of really slowed down, and it even kind of showing how kind of predatory Thana was, kind of just like pointing the gun, like, very carefully, like pointing at targets one by one. This eventually leads to her colleague that we see earlier in the film. Her colleague takes the kitchen knife and stabs Thana in the back. She gets stabbed in the back, literally. Turns around and we hear a scream from Thana. It's the only time we actually hear her a voice. And that's it. She's dead. This movie, even though it is quite a violent movie, we see a happy ending with the dog, the landlord's dog Phil, running back up the stairs, and Thana did show mercy. Dog wasn't killed, and that's basically it. And that was the movie. It's not a very long movie, only about an hour and 20 minutes. So yeah, not long at all. I like this more than Driller Killer for sure. Even though Driller Killer was a more, as mentioned, raw, intense kind of movie with a very haunting ending. This movie was a more polished low budget movie. It was like the next step up. It was still a low budget movie, and you could see the certain constraints, but clearly the filmmakers had taken time, especially with the cinematography, some of the shots that was used, some of the music and how the music was used in certain places. I think a lot of care and consideration had gone into this, and this would only lead to other further projects for Abel Ferrara, which of course I will be going on to review. Big fan of him. I must say I'm not a huge fan of his most recent work, more of a fan of his earlier work back in the 80s and 90s, but Miss 45, definitely a highlight of Abel Ferrara's filmography. Highly recommend it. And the only other thing I kind of want to mention here is that Zoe Tamalis, who played Thana, never really got another real shining moment on the big screen. She did star in some other things, but she never really went on to bigger and better things. She was involved very much in heroin, and as mentioned, that stumped her kind of career. And it's a shame because this was a great performance from Zoe Lund. This was her finest moment, I would say, on the big screen. Just the visuals that she gave off, and just she did a lot of acting with her face and the eyes and the innocence, but then some of how that kind of turned, and how twisted she became, how twisted the character became. Very, very good. Really enjoyed the movie, and just kind of bittersweet, to rewatch this movie knowing that she died so young. She died, I think, it was in 1999. I think she was only mid-30s. Died of a heroin overdose. You'd like to say this is the beginning of her career, and even though it technically is the beginning, her career never really went anywhere after this. And even though she had involvement and she wrote Bad Lieutenant and went on to star in and act alongside Harvey Keitel, who's a high caliber actor, her as a lead in a lead role, Miss 45, she never really got that moment again, and it's a shame because she did a great job. Bittersweet, but glad that she at least got this moment, Glad that at least she had a chance anyway to do this. And also, I'll quickly say about the scenery. This is like the movie is, Abel Ferrara's movies are very much of the time, pretty much. This is a very early 80s movie with the music and some of the just the look and feel of the movie, the vibe of that kind of early 1980s New York. You really kind of get that, like New York is almost like a character almost, and there's some great scenery. A great movie. Would I recommend it? Yes. If I were to give it a score out of 10, I would say it's a 6.5 or a 7. I think I'm going to go for a 7 out of 10, because there's a lot going for this movie, and as well it's pretty quick, so the pace is good. Not all of the music, some of the music is pretty dated. As I said, it's of its time, it's a cult movie. So yeah, that's been my review of Miss 45, directed by Abel Ferrara, 1981. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Have you guys seen this movie? If you have, what did you think? I'd like to hear your thoughts. Anyways, guys, thanks so much.
Like, subscribe.